Hi guys, today I want to talk about Netflix's latest rom-com series, Nobody Wants This. Let's address the French Bulldog in the room. I am late to this review. I should have had this out a month ago, but I've had a lot on my plate. I finally watched it, and surprisingly, even though I'm late to this, when I watched the show, there was so much I had to say about it and where the story went that I actually wanted to do a video on it. So we're going to start this review with a spoiler-free thoughts section, and then the majority of this video is going to be a post-game discussion, a spoiler-filled discussion about the characters and about where the story goes. So first off, for those of you who don't know, it's a romantic comedy between Adam Brody and Kristen Bell's character, and Adam Brody is playing a rabbi, Kristen Bell is playing a sex podcast host, and she's agnostic. So the core tension of this show is the fact that Adam Brody is a rabbi and Kristen Bell does not believe in religion. Will they make it? Who knows? I think the thing I liked best about this show is that it moved. You know, it's 10 episodes. You can watch it in an afternoon, however. I think it's incredibly well paced. It never overstays its welcome. Every time you think a situation might be stretching your patience, it moves on to the next thing. I also find really refreshing about this show is that it's adult characters actually acting like adults. I've seen a lot of complaints that there's not enough interpersonal conflict in this show. There's not enough high stakes drama. And I think that's what happens when you start getting above the age of 30 and, you know, your prefrontal cortex actually like fills in properly and people stop being hysterical over nothing. You know, people have good emotional resolve, hopefully, as they get older. And it's refreshing to watch people actually being respectful of each other, respect each other's boundaries, and actually trying to make a relationship work. You know, as opposed to so many rom-coms where it's just filled with unnecessary drama and characters that previously have good decision making and are respectful people just making the most disrespectful decisions ever. Here, pretty much at every turn, people are making the right choices for one another, and when they don't, it's coming from a place of necessity or short-sightedness, and that is addressed. You know, people talk things out well, people communicate. Even Kristen Bell throughout this series is told by everyone around her that she's like a bad person, that she's impulsive, that she doesn't care about others, all this stuff. And like, I don't know about you guys, but the whole time I was watching the show, I was like, is the point of this show that everyone's mean to her and doesn't read her properly? Because to me, she seemed totally well adjusted and fine for the most part. And her shortcomings, she actually outlined to Adam Brody very early on and said, you know, like, I need you to care for me because sometimes I have big emotions. And that was a beautiful scene. But like, I was genuinely perplexed for the first chunk of the series where her mom and her sister were criticizing her. I was like, does the show want us to think these things are true? Because based on what I've seen, I don't really agree. If anything, the sister is actually quite difficult herself. Let me know if you guys felt the same. I genuinely could not tell if the writers were trying to say, oh, look how misread she is, or whether that was meant to be the reading we also have of Kristen Bell, and that was meant to be her arc throughout the season, that she grows past that. Because to me, she seemed pretty chill and pretty well adjusted from the start. Next, it's refreshing with Adam Brody. First off, a great performance, but it's refreshing to have someone who's just like emotionally mature. He doesn't make stupid fuckboy mistakes. Every single mistake he does make, he quickly corrects and like explains the misunderstanding. It's just refreshing to watch a romantic comedy that is actually focused on the romance, and you can actually buy into the romance because it's two people trying to treat each other well. Now, unfortunately, one of the core issues that the couple face in this show is the fact that Kristen Bell's character is agnostic. All right, they say this in the premise, and I will say, yes, she technically is. Like, she explains this a few times throughout the show, but she's never seen as particularly difficult or hateful towards religion, and I expected that to be more of a contentious point between Kristen Bell and Adam Brody. I was expecting him to be like, oh, religion has so many great things to offer. Like, why can't you be religious? Why can't you see the world the way I see? But he's very open. He flat out states early on in the show that, you know, faith is different to everyone and it's a spectrum and it doesn't matter how much you believe as long as you kind of like want to believe and do good. I'm paraphrasing here, but there is a quote he makes early on about, you know, even I don't believe certain things. I find things hard to believe. So as a result, I feel like the kind of conflict that the show was trying to get at didn't exactly land because Kristen Bell didn't seem too kind of headstrong in her beliefs that she couldn't be open to at least entertaining Adam Brody in a philosophical conversation if they were a couple. And Adam Brody also seems incredibly open to bringing her under his wing and taking her for who she is. Like, genuinely, I know kind of where the show goes is this ultimate choice as to whether they can both compromise on their religious beliefs, but personally, I felt like this was a little undercooked, but I'll need to get into that in the spoiler section. But if this interests you at all, please check out the show. It's a really good rom-com. There are issues which I will get into in the spoiler section, but yeah, please check it out. I just want to take a second of your time to tell you about memberships to this channel. So for a small cost, you get access to basically a book club, but for movies and TV shows. Right now, we're covering Tell Me Lies Season 1, so every week I'm covering an episode of the show, and then we all go and watch the other episode, which I then proceed to talk about the next week. And then after that, members will be able to vote on which series or movies I cover next. On top of that, every 2 to 3 weeks, I cover everything I have watched that I haven't been able to talk about on the channel in basically a quick podcast. So you get all of that in the membership. I really would love if you consider getting a membership to this channel. It helps out the channel massively. It means I can also produce content for you that is a bit less censored and uses more copyright footage and just is a bit more free flowy. So if that sounds interesting to you at all, please consider getting a membership. Thank you so much, and back to the video. Now let's talk about spoilers. So the big kind of conflict in the show is the fact that Kristen Bell would need to eventually convert to Judaism to be with Adam Brody because he is a rabbi and he's going to become the head rabbi. And I found this point interesting because the whole show has this really kind of like snarky sense of humor. There are a lot of jokes, I guess, at the expense or just in general about the Jewish faith. There are a lot of like Jewish jokes throughout this show. And I guess for me, I thought the reason the show was getting away with this was because the show was also very interested in exploring the Jewish faith. Adam Brody is a very dignified character. And as a person that isn't Jewish, I was learning a lot about the faith. I was learning a lot about the religion. And I felt like simultaneously I was getting a cute rom-com and also becoming more educated on different cultures. So I was like, you know what? Okay, it's a comedy show. They have some edgy jokes, whatever. However, I think this is a worse look given the ending. I found the ending really strange. So I know that for most people at home, for most women watching the show, they're probably going to think, oh my God, if he wanted to, he really would. Adam Brody gave up his dream of being the head rabbi to be with Kristen Bell, and she didn't need to change anything about her to be with him. He just needed to drop his ambitions of being the head rabbi. Bro, I thought this ending was an absolute horror story for Adam Brody. I thought this was a shit ending for Adam Brody. This sucked. He, like, the whole show, he wanted to be, you know, the head rabbi, and he gets it. And then Kristen Bell runs up to him and goes like, hey, like, I don't want to make you choose, and I can't be converted to the Jewish faith. Like, I just don't buy it. I'm sorry. And then he goes, oh yeah, okay. They have a sad song montage to Strange by Celeste, and then Adam Brody somehow teleports to like her bus stop and, you know, says, you know what, you don't need to choose either because I'm not going to be head rabbi. Bro, this is like a sad ending for Adam Brody. This is the example of if he wanted to, he would, that is veering into unrealistic territory. Like, this is tragic. Now, I do not agree with the online takes that he should have been with his ex-girlfriend. Putting on the ring like that was absolutely insane. And yes, she knows more about the Jewish faith, but they don't connect as well as him and Kristen Bell. Like, I'm not mad at him for abandoning his girlfriend. However, the girlfriend very much, you know, knew about his faith and was supportive of his ambitions, and Kristen Bell obviously isn't. And I think the issue I have with Kristen Bell's character is I feel like the idea of her converting or being open-minded wasn't fully explored enough in the way I would have liked. I would have liked more discussions about what it actually meant for her to convert, how much she actually had to believe. Because the impression I got throughout the show was that Adam Brody didn't really expect her to fully drink the Kool-Aid and believe everything that the Jewish faith believes. He just needed her to convert because of the cultural implications and being culturally Jewish rather than believing in every single part of the faith. Now, they do actually explain in the show that in order to be with the head rabbi, that is a lot more involvement than the usual conversion. She definitely needs to like put on a show and represent the Jewish faith, and maybe that gave her cold feet. But I don't know if the quick fix answer of Adam Brody just completely abandoning his ambitions and, you know, completely tanking his relationship with his family and his culture is the right answer for this woman that, I mean, in all reality, he doesn't even really know that much and seemed rather disrespectful of his faith at certain points. You know, when these two blonde sex podcast hosts showed up to bar mitzvah chewing gum, it did give me a bit of an ick. Anyways, moving on from that, there are sections I really liked. I really liked the section where Kristen Bell got the ick. It was just a well-realized comedic premise. I felt bad for Adam Brody here. I thought getting the flowers was nice, but yeah, the sport jacket and the shorts was definitely an interesting look. I also liked the conflict between Kristen Bell and Adam Brody's mum. Also, hot take, I know a lot of the fan base did not like the cheating subplot between Kristen Bell's sister and Adam Brody's brother, right? The two side characters that are kind of having a bit of an emotional entanglement off to the side. I kind of liked it. You know, just because you're interested in watching something on screen doesn't mean you condone it. And you know what? Like, I don't know. It's escapism. Like, I was finding it interesting. I was wondering where it was going. The guy also simultaneously came off as a bad partner to his wife, but a good father in that situation where he, you know, helped the girl with her Snapchat situation. I mean, in his own weird way. But yeah, I just found all these side characters really well done, really interesting. And I was enjoying where that plot was going. And I'm sad to hear that in season 2, they're just going to completely abandon it because like fan reception, they haven't liked it that much. But yeah, I was kind of conflicted on how I felt about the representation of Adam Brody's ambitions, Adam Brody's religion and faith, because it was a bit disappointing to see that he just completely throws it away for like white girl of the week for him. It was a bit strange. And it's not that I'm like mad or I think that the show is particularly racist, but I guess I wanted more conversations before I resorted to that, more of a love story, you know, like a real sort of sense of like, oh my God, I don't want to have to choose, but I guess, you know, love is the most important thing in life. But I wanted to feel the weight of that decision. And genuinely, the way the ending was presented felt a bit like, yeah, if he wanted to, he would. You know, it felt a bit like Hollywood rom-com unrealistic expectations. Like, yeah, he'll just drop that if he wanted to. Like, here he is. But here's the thing. I'm not even particularly mad at Kristen Bell's character because she was kind of doing the right thing in her brain, right? Like, letting him go because she didn't fully believe the faith was the right thing to do. I just don't think Adam Brody should have made that choice that yet. I feel like season 2 should have been the tension of him trying to be, you know, head rabbi and realizing that it's not worth it for him because he can't be in love with who he wants to be, and seeing if there's a way he can still be, you know, religious to the capacity that he wants to be, but also be in love with Kristen Bell. And maybe that is just being rabbi rather than head rabbi, but I guess I wanted some closure and some clarification as to what that looked like. And again, I would have loved an exploration, maybe if even Kristen Bell was Googling what converting to the Jewish faith looked like, you know, how much she actually had to believe, how much she had to represent, how much of it was just cultural rather than religious. Like, I feel like for the show exploring all these things about the Jewish faith, I feel like this was a missed opportunity. You know, I was enjoying actually learning a lot of stuff throughout this show, but the ending kind of felt like a bit of a slap in the face to the rest of that stuff. While we're talking about spoilers, let's talk about Adam Brody's ex. So I really didn't love the way the situation with the ring was represented in this show. I'd heard about it going into it and I was like, oh my God, is this going to be a really tragic story where he falls in love with Kristen Bell and his ex realizes what she's lost and she was just acting out of fear of losing him. So when I heard about that ring situation, I thought it was going to be a lot sadder. I thought it was going to be like, you know, she found it and he hadn't engaged for ages and he hadn't proposed for ages because he wasn't really feeling the relationship with her anymore, and sometimes she wore it to, like, you know, daydream and then maybe fell asleep and he caught her on with it. I thought it was going to be a lot more sympathetic, but her reaction to being caught with it was just so unrealistic and strange. And I know it's a comedy show, like I know it's meant to be lighthearted, but the show never really leans into this level of like kind of satirical, on the nose, silly, goofy writing for the rest of the show. So it kind of started the show a bit on the wrong foot. Like, it was just so ridiculous that she was like, yeah, you know, I've spoken to your mother. We're just going to rush the wedding along, yada, yada, yada. I was like, okay. Thankfully, though, the rest of the conflicts between Kristen Bell and Adam Brody were actually really well done, really well realized, and landed emotionally for me. On top of that, though, I really did like the section where Kristen Bell's sister bumps into Adam Brody's ex at the bar. She's reading Where the Crawdads Sing, and she basically pretends that she doesn't know who Kristen Bell's sister is, and, you know, reveals all these lies about, and tells all these lies about Adam Brody, and then causes this rift between Kristen Bell and her sister. The fight is excellent, and I like that you're kind of seeing there as the audience simultaneously being like feeling bad for both of them, thinking they're both in the right and both in the wrong at the same time. Really well done conflict. I really liked it. And I also, again, really liked that there wasn't too much interpersonal conflict between Adam Brody and Kristen Bell. At the end of the day, romantic comedies need us to root for their core couples, and I appreciated that we could actually get behind two kind of emotionally competent people for the most part. Yes, they both had growth to do in some aspects, but like at the end of the day, we all are always growing. But it was refreshing to actually see healthy love. And again, that's why the ending was just a bit rushed and cooked for me, in my opinion. But overall, I'm just really dying to hear what you guys think of the ending, because for me, it left a bit of a strange taste in my mouth. And I'm wondering if I'm the only one on the internet that thinks that. But regardless, I really did enjoy the show overall. I thought it was really well paced. The performances were excellent. It was a cute rom-com for like 97% of it. Anyways, thank you so much for watching, and have a lovely day.